Tea with the Devil, a podcast by Eric Rushton and Richard Dadd. Episode 6. Hello, Eric. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I've got something on my mind this week.
Oh, yes?
And it's come about because I've started seeing someone.
Oh, okay.
Romantically.
So what do you want to talk about? Do you want advice?
I think I'm in love, really. And I want to know what love is.
You want to talk about love?
Yeah.
Eric, this is me and you, Eric and Satan, talking as a couple of mates. This isn't loose women.
But men need to talk.
Do
about,
they?
You know, these things these days, or they kill themselves.
Can't we talk about football and birds and cars?
Why can't it be like loose women? Why do we have to leave emotional chat to women? Do you know what I mean?
Because they're so good at talking about it at length, well you know. Hey, am I right?
No, I'm not going to even acknowledge that casual sexism. I think I'm quite good at it as well. I reckon I can give Colleen Nolan a run for her money.
Well, get on to your agent about it then. I'm sure they could get you onto loose women.
Is it still called loose women? Isn't it called something else now?
It should be. It should be called loose people.
I honestly think it's called something like that now. Is it called like loose women and men now? No, it can't be. I'd love to be on Loose Women. It's a great platform, a good chance to get my name out there, kind of get some views on my social.
Well, yes, and the more women who know about you, Eric, the more chance you've got of getting your leg over, old boy.
I can't really be doing any of that stuff anymore because I've met someone. Not that I was doing loads of it.
But you need to. That's via Loose Women. You could really chalk up the notches or notch up the.
Oh, I think my notches are done now. Potentially,
your notches are done already.
The one.
Have you seen how few notches you have? It's barely any notches at all. It just looks like
Do you do a notch every time you have sex, or every new person?
It's every new person, and
yeah, so that's done.
No, your bedpost looks.
Maybe if she's the one, that's it. There's no more notches.
No, it's not enough notches.
Maybe if she dies before me, I'll bang someone who's like 80 when I'm like 80. But then by that point, he's putting notches in, and I'll probably have to get my robot butler to put in a notch. But anyway, we're deviating. I wanted to talk to you about love. Is this like, I don't know, it's like this force in the universe, isn't it? Like romantic love, I mean, specifically. Everyone seems to be after it.
Well, yes, about
and I've been like that a lot, where I thought I'll be happy as soon as I find romantic love, or to share my life with someone and be vulnerable.
You seem to have spent a lot of your time moping about wanting a girlfriend.
I'm a moper. A lot of my comedy, I guess, has been about that. And
what kind of magic transformation are you expecting as soon as you meet a girl who says, yes, all right, I'll be your girlfriend?
Well, there's a few things, isn't there? There's bending them over and railing them and all that stuff.
Yes, that's part of it.
And them, being on top and riding you and all that.
Yes, arguably that's the most important part of all.
Yeah, cowgirl and reverse cowgirl, all that kind of stuff. 69, yeah. So that's one part of it. And then there's just watching a film with someone and like cuddling and that, and just being like, oh, good morning and oh, good night, kind of like that. I know it sounds a bit basic and boring, but
it does, yes.
The pleasantries in a relationship.
You can watch a film on your own.
Yeah, but I can't, when it gets to a sad bit, I can't like squeeze someone a little bit tighter.
Well, you squeeze a cushion.
It's not the same though. It's something about knowing the thing you're squeezing has a brain inside of it.
Well, you could put
I guess there's pets for that. There's pets, yeah.
Absolutely. You could get yourself a small animal of some sort. Or you could just grow a backbone and be a man and watch a film without crying and stop this relentless moping around needing a hug like you're a child and stop moping after something that is a fantasy that's never going to bring you the real joy.
Yeah, have you ever been in a relationship?
Love is an illusion, Eric. It's
talk straight past that.
It's a form of mental illness. It's not something you should aspire to. It's a fleeting form of madness. It makes you think in ways that don't make sense. It makes you beholden to another individual, which is deeply unwise.
What is wrong with it? Why do you think it will fall short of my expectations of it?
You should always look out for yourself. You should care about yourself most, because nobody else is going to.
Isn't there something in sacrifice though? God's always going on about sacrifice, isn't he? And relationships kind of a sacrifice. You sacrifice in being selfish.
It is a sacrifice. Being in a relationship is a sacrifice. Exactly.
But in a good way, I mean, like there's something about sacrificing that.
No, you lose your free time.
You need to look for something bigger than yourself.
So you like big birds? Is that what you're saying?
I don't mean literally bigger than yourself in terms of body
mass
index.
You want a BBW? You want a nice big zaftig blimp of a woman who can get you in a headlock?
I could fall in love with of women of all shapes and sizes.
Well, yes, and you should try them all out.
You know that phrase? I don't know why people say shapes. Get sizes, shapes inside. What other shape are they going to be? Like a rhombus. Yeah. Do you ever not want a nice relationship?
Want a nice big lady for cuddling at night.
It doesn't have to be a big lady. We're getting caught up on that, and that's not what I meant.
But there's more for the loving, Eric.
Yeah, there's more to love. Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that. It can be like losing yourself on a bouncy castle.
Yeah.
But you should embrace being a bachelor, Eric, and living as a young man.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a contradiction there because
free and easy.
When people have that fantasy of being a bachelor,
yes,
part of the fantasy is that they're just banging people whenever they want.
Yes, and you don't do enough of that.
No, but they're still kind of bringing love into it. They're like, wouldn't it be mint to not have a girlfriend so I could have loads of women? You've separated sex and love.
Yes, because they're two completely distinct and unconnected concepts. That's why.
I don't know.
Sex and love, Eric, are like food and radiation.
No, not that different.
You can have radioactive food, but wouldn't it be better to have food that isn't radioactive?
No, I think they're like a roast dinner and gravy. So sex is the roast dinner, and love is nice warm gravy, but, we won't just have gravy by itself.
You might have a cup of Bovril. Have you never enjoyed a nice hot cup of Bovril?
Not without having a wank at the same time, which kind of proves my point that the two need to be merged.
Perfect evening.
You need that roast dinner and that gravy. You need the sex and the love. I don't know, because the love is like sex and companionship and commitment. I feel like you've got
nagging and madness and being chained to somebody.
Why is it madness? Aren't there higher pleasures? Being with someone for 40 years and sharing a life together and having this shared
and getting a mortgage
story and children and
not being allowed to sleep with anybody else. And your bloody mother-in-law.
Well, some people are swingers. Some people sort it out so they can sleep with other people. Maybe you discuss being swingers.
And then they get cancer and they die, and then one of you is alone.
Yeah.
It's tragic, isn't it? You don't want that. Don't condemn yourself to the misery of a relationship, Eric.
But just because something ends doesn't mean it's not meaningful.
Well, yes, that is true, I suppose. You could have a whirlwind romance, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Have as much fun as you can, and then, if it looks like it's getting serious, if she starts, stopping outside of jewelers and pretending to tie her shoe right by the engagement rings, that's the point when you run like the wind.
I think I'm happy with it, to be honest.
Well, I think you're playing with fire. You're dicing with death. Love is a form of madness. It makes you behave in peculiar ways.
Where do you get this madness idea from? Is this something that's happened to you?
No, absolutely not. Of course not. I wouldn't suffer from that weakness.
Why is it a weakness?
Because you put yourself in a position where you're entirely beholden to another individual. You have all your freedom taken off you. You become entirely entwined with them. You get told what to do.
Have you ever been in love?
No, I have never been in love, and why? It wouldn't make sense for a creature like me to be in love. Love only makes sense to mortal beings, doesn't it? If you're immortal, you can't fall in love.
I'm a celebrity, get me out of here in hell.
Well, I mean, I pick it up from Earth, yes.
There was a series, I think it was 2 years ago now, where Harry Redknapp was on it, and all he went on about was how much he missed his wife Sandra, and how much she does for him and stuff like that. And they'd met when, I don't know, they were like 17 or something ridiculous, something really young. They'd been together all their lives, and the nation loved it. He ended up winning the show, and big part of that was that he always went on about how in love with his wife he was, and it kind of inspired me that a bit. Like, I wish I could have someone like that.
Well, of course, she absolutely loved him being in the jungle. She was off out every night, having fun.
Right, were you watching?
Of course I was.
Okay.
She was having an absolute whale of a time.
Is that your thing? Do you watch a lot?
Yeah.
Isn't that somewhat unethical?
Yes.
I guess you've kind of got a get out of jail free card because you're the devil, so no one expects you to be ethical.
I mean, to be honest, it doesn't really cross my mind to be ethical.
Yeah.
I mean, what does it mean to be ethical? It basically means to be boring and denying yourself. Well, why on earth would I do that?
But I think this is what I've come into with his higher pleasures. Isn't there kind of a satisfaction with being a good person?
Well, smug self-righteousness.
I don't know, you're casting it in a bad light. I watched a film about love the other day, actually.
Oh, yes, what was it? Gangbang Divas 4, was it that one?
No, it was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, these people are in love, basically. They break up, and his girlfriend gets a memory wiped as a way to get over him. He gets his memory wiped too. It made me think a lot about love and, like, maybe what we were saying earlier, that if something ends in a bad way, then you kind of forget all the good times, or you don't want to acknowledge the good times, because they add all these good times together, and then they realise how kind of important those memories are, even though it ended badly. and they don't want their memories wiped. What's your thoughts on relationships when they end? Are you able to kind of cherish what you had with someone, or do you have to?
I say move on, forget about it. It's all in the past. It doesn't matter. Don't dwell on it.
Yeah.
Don't make yourself sad moping about, thinking about, people and what might have been. Don't think about all that. Think about what is. Think about what's tomorrow. Think about what could be.
See, there's just something that feels a bit different about you when we talk about these topics.
You see, the thing is,
Seem a bit agitated.
love is a form. No, I'm not agitated. I'm just trying to impress upon you, Eric, that you are being drawn towards a kind of insanity that is trying to tie you down, and all it is an evolutionary drive. It's simply a mechanism that has come about in order to try to get you to procreate. That's all this is. It's a form of madness to make you procreate. And when you live, as I do, as an eternal being, you don't have these madnesses, these compulsions. And what I'm saying is you should transcend yourself beyond it, Eric. Don't fall in love. Don't do it.
Have you ever wanted kids?
No. I don't want... Can you imagine me with children? What would I do with them? Torture them?
In one of our previous conversations, you talked about me being your kind of mouthpiece around the country as a comedian, and you compared me to
that
sort
could
of,
work.
How Jesus kind of God's hype man. And there's a father-son thing there, and it almost felt in that moment you were trying to
I think that
develop a kind of father-son
the love
bond.
that one might have for a satanic son, a prophet on the earth, is a fine form of friendship. Just like you would have with any other kind of mate or chum, and that's good. But that mustn't be mistaken for romance and poetry and bunches of flowers and all that nonsense. Don't have any part of that. Love is a very complicated concept. The word love gets used to mean many types of things. You could say, I love a foot rub. I love a chicken korma. I love going to Stoke-on-Trent. You might love any of these things.
Well, it's a word that's used in so many different contexts, and I think that's why it is quite a confusing word. Because, I do love friends and family, but when we're talking about romantic love...
the dangerous sort.
Maybe it's part of the madness you keep talking about. But maybe that's part of its appeal.
It is. That's the appeal. It draws you in. You want to be intoxicated by it. Resist.
I've struggled to move on from romantic things that haven't worked out in the past.
In a way, it's better to erase your own mind by just not thinking about it, by moving on, by moving forward, seizing the day.
It's difficult to have this conversation because you're claiming to have never been in love.
Of course I've never been in love. Don't be ridiculous.
But for someone that seems to know so much about its inner workings...
Well, because I've observed a lot of human beings, but I've certainly never been in love. I mean, who would I fall in love with? What a ridiculous notion. Absolutely absurd. I've never been in love. No, I've absolutely banged my way around the universe, but I've never fallen in love. Never. Not once. No, sir.
What was her name?
No, I've never been in love, Eric. Frankly, ludicrous of you to even suggest the idea. I mean, we're talking about the devil here. The only person I love is myself.
I've been thinking about, my flatmate Joe.
Oh, yes, Joe. What about him? You're not in love with him, are you?
It's not a romantic love, but it's kind of a really close bond, and sometimes we get in each other's nerves. Just living together for so long, it can kind of, I think he's can be a bit negative sometimes. He's a bit moody. Yeah, he thinks I'm very messy.
I'm wondering where this is going. Did you have a naked wrestle or something? Where's this
He's always
going?
trying to wrestle me. That's one thing as well. He's always trying to wrestle me. I don't like wrestling.
And you get erections? Is that what it is?
No, but I thought, maybe you're right. Maybe it is better to just kind of go your own way and find out how to tackle life on your own.
Oh, yes. So you're thinking of moving out? Oh, you're not going to move in with that girl, are you?
Well, I'm thinking of... potentially doing away with him.
Doing away with him? What do you mean, like...
Murder, yeah.
Ah, well, this does change things. So you're finally coming to your senses.
I've realised that I'm not meeting you halfway sometimes. I'm not meeting you in the middle and kind of taking your advice on board. I'm just saying, I kind of want to maybe propose a deal.
A deal? What do you mean, a deal?
What if I kill Joe?
Yes, absolutely, you should do that. Yes, you should kill Joe. Do that, yes. So.
But in exchange, you need to tell me about what happened to you.
What do you mean, what happened to me?
What her name is, why you can't get over it, why you're still holding on to it, why you deny it, why you don't...
No. There was nothing. There's nothing to tell, Eric. There's no story here. You're rooting around for nothing. There's no...
I bought the axe.
There's no story. You bought the axe.
I bought the axe.
You're going to do it with an axe.
Mm-hmm.
You're not pulling my leg, are you?
No.
Are you going to?
What's her name?
You're actually going to kill. You're going to kill Joe, like we talked about.
You need to meet me
We've
halfway.
been talking about this for weeks, Eric, and you've been saying, "Oh no, I wouldn't kill Joe." You've changed your mind.
Yeah, well, we've had a few arguments recently.
Yes, he is annoying, isn't he?
I sat on his side of the sofa and he got annoyed about that.
Having a side of the sofa. What a complete pillock
he bought
is.
the sofa. He bought like reclining sofas, but it's like if he's gonna buy the sofa and put it in the living room, I'm entitled to use it as well.
You could sit wherever you like. You could push him off. You could push him off with an axe really hard. God. So you bought an axe. Where did you get it from?
Well, I'm not gonna tell you any more about.
No, come on,
my
tell me some
plan.
more. Tell me about this axe. How are you going to do it? How are you going to kill him?
You need to give me some more information, and then I'll tell you once you finally open up to me, because it's been, it almost feels like I've spoken to you in kind of 6 very digestible episodes so far, and I know there's something there, especially when it comes to love.
So you're proposing that I have to open up and tell you about my past,
Yeah.
and in return, you promise
Mhm.
that you're going to murder Joe really horribly
Yeah.
with an axe this evening.
Yeah, as soon as we're done.
Will you do it this evening for me?
Yeah, you can watch it.
Can I sit in the corner and watch while you kill him?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, listen, Eric, I can't resist a deal, and if all I have to do to ensure that you finally dispatch Joe is tell you a story, then yes, I agree. It's a deal. Let's shake on it.
Okay.
There. Okay. So what is it that you want to know?
I want to know whether you've ever been in love, and I want you to answer honestly.
Okay, I admit it. There was somebody once. A woman. I don't talk about her often. I don't talk about her at all. In fact, I've never told anyone this before, Eric. I keep her buried inside, in my chest, in my thoughts. She was different. She was a witch. Centuries ago now, but at the same time, it could be yesterday. Strange how someone can just pop into existence and turn your life upside down. She lived a solitary existence in her tumble-down cottage on the edge of some blasted heath somewhere, with her cat and her remarkable talents for telepathy. She could breeze through your thoughts as easily as if you'd left the front door open, rummage around with a playfulness I'd simply never known. I'm used to being a visitor in other people's minds, of course, but to have someone in my own, it was unheard of. I was amused by the boldness with which she made herself at home amongst my thoughts, acting as if she owned the place. And eventually I suppose she did. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Our first ever encounter was when she summoned me one day. Now, I've had many dealings with witches over the years, of course, but when one is in as much demand as I am, it is sometimes best to turn off one's occult notifications, so to speak. So, a witch performing a rite of summoning will usually be put through to one of my lesser demons, a sprite, an imp, one of my representatives. But somehow that day she was put through to me. Maybe out of the sheer force of her will, I don't know. I suppose sometimes the wind just blows in the right direction. And so I answered her call. I erupted in a circle of flames centered on a pentagram daubed on the flagstones of her kitchen floor in the fresh warm blood of a dying she-goat. The animal lay at her feet, half alive, panting, burbling and bubbling from the frothing vermilion wound of its neck. I could sense the thrill she felt at having caused its demise, the expiration of its life force providing the energy required to channel our communion. Her eyes burned with a bloodlust I both recognized and deeply admired, as she licked clean the wet red blade and curtsied. It was to be the only gesture of subservience I ever remember her making. Very soon she would leave it quite clear she saw herself resolutely as my equal, if not at times my superior. But I confess I didn't see this at first. I was blinded by assumptions. You see, beautiful, troubled goth girls are 10 a penny in my line of work. Groupies are never hard to find. And initially that's what I took her to be, this curvaceous woman with her cascading raven hair. Out of habit, I reeled off the answers to the standard fangirl questions, autographed her thigh. But soon it became apparent that this was no mere meet and greet. She fixed me with those extraordinary eyes of hers and said, "All right, Beardy, let's get down to it." I raised an eyebrow and said, "Aren't you going to pour me a drink first?" There was, after all, an entire goat's worth of claret going to waste, slowly clotting at our feet. But she fetched me a jug of cider instead and said that what she wanted from me was in fact something really quite simple. She said that all that she wanted was the truth. I didn't know what she meant. The truth of what? And so she told me her story.
She's got a story as well. This is like Game of Thrones.
In her younger days, she had been a nun, hidden away from the outside world, insulated from its pleasures and pains by prayers and thick stone walls. Virtuous, virginal, devout and uncorrupted, she was pure and pious, dedicated to her godly duties. A perfect specimen. But then one day she was out in the orchard gathering apples, when she spotted at a distance a handsome, rugged young farmhand on adjacent land just beyond the walls of the nunnery. She had lived most of her short life so far in almost total seclusion, and was not used to seeing men. She said she didn't know quite what came over her, but she felt suddenly compelled to scale the wall, to drop down into the ferns on the other side and make her way across the field to greet him. The farmhand knew to give the nuns their privacy and distance, so he pretended not to notice her and busied himself in his toil. Realizing this, she feigned an injury in order to attract his attention, calling out, limping and waving. The farmhand, in his concern, put down his tools and approached to see if he could offer some assistance. But upon reaching her, he realized she was not injured in the slightest. On the contrary, she darted urgently towards him, grabbing him by the head before kissing him hungrily and passionately on the mouth, with an animal indecency that was hitherto unknown to either of them.
Getting a bit PG.
Instinctively, they fell to the floor, tumbling together into the long grass, wordlessly making love there in the middle of the field with the hot sun beating down on them.
Damn, this is saucy stuff, man.
As their breathlessness ascended to a dizzying peak, the girl reached into her skirts for a large, jagged rock she had squirreled away and promptly dashed the boy's brains clean out, with such exquisite timing that his tiny death merged seamlessly into the real thing. But though the boy had quite literally lost his mind during this fit of ecstasy, it hadn't quite done the trick for her, so she carried on riding him for a little while, and eked out the pleasure she could by hammering again and again at his skull with the rock, getting faster and faster, his features ever more like a shattered pumpkin, a caved-in watermelon, a dropped microwave meal on the floor of a supermarket aisle. And eventually the sight of this obscene volcanic mess tipped her over the edge into an explosion of bliss, and she slumped alongside him, her heart thumping, catching her breath. Almost immediately the post-nut clarity was overwhelming. In embarrassment and shame, she grabbed the headless body by the ankles and dragged it into the bushes, before patting herself down and making her way back towards the nunnery to resume her duties. And it was then that she noticed. All of the other sisters were standing outside in the orchard, staring open-mouthed in horror. They had witnessed the entire affair. They shaved her head and shamed her, cast her from the nunnery and called her wicked. They said they would pray for her soul every hour of the day, but they couldn't countenance her staying. They cut her out like a cancer, lest her sinfulness should spread to the other sisters. And so she found herself roaming the roads of England, foraging for food, eating foxes and pheasants, sleeping out under the stars. And yet for all that she knew her actions were evil and indefensible in the eyes of God, yet still she remembered the passion of the killing, the intensity of the feeling, and the sheer rightness of it. Excommunication from the nunnery wasn't a punishment, she told me. It was a liberation. She was free to be herself, no longer shackled, tethered by the rituals of monastic life, the tedium and modesty of their morality. She could do as she pleased. She would pass through strange towns and villages where she would befriend drunken boys or wenches in alehouses, and then lead them into woodlands for forbidden trysts and dispatch them in ever more imaginative ways. She adopted the name Lilith for herself as a demonic affectation, and hid away from the world, becoming apprenticed to an old witch who taught her everything she knew. And when there was nothing left for her to teach, Lilith smashed her brains out too and turned her into stew in the cauldron. "So tell me, O Dark Lord Satan," Lilith said, when her tale was over. "I must know, was it you who made me turn my back on Jesus Christ and commit those wicked deeds? Was it you who filled my heart with lust for these sins? Are you not the source of all evil in the world?" And I told her the truth. Quite simply, and somewhat to my shame, Eric, I had been completely unaware of the girl and her work. Sometimes people just slip through the cracks. My hand was in none of those killings, and I certainly hadn't possessed her. Her crimes were hers and hers alone. For I am not the source of all evil in the world. I have it within me, yes. Just as you have it within you, Eric, just as every man has it within him. But on this occasion I was not guilty. However, I was deeply enamored with the girl. Her vivacious, untamable energy. She was fascinating to me, intricate and unknowable, like a constellation, like a beautiful poisonous flower barbed with thorns.
Nice.
And now that Lilith knew that she had not been a pawn of some demonic influence, but had in fact been acting solely out of her own initiative, she felt satisfied. For now she knew her heart was truly as black as the night. We were kindred spirits. For we both knew how it felt to fall from the house of God and discover that there were better, more fulfilling, more thrilling ways of living. She said she had no time for mortal beings, and I felt the same. She looked into my eyes and told me for the first time she felt truly understood. After a life of her being lonely, isolated, shunned, and misunderstood. Until that day, I had been completely oblivious to her existence, and then all in one dizzying moment, she suddenly felt like part of me. I would visit her regularly from then on. We would spend hours together, days lost in each other's company. For how do you mark time when you are falling in love? It is a blissful eternity. We would while away the time out of our heads and in each other's heads, exploring the psychedelic interior landscapes of our respective psyches like fairgrounds. And back in the real world we would amuse ourselves with orgies and parties and feasts and killings. Oh, we killed so many together. We left a trail of destruction across the land. I felt somehow different, changed. As if my life were divided into two distinct epochs, before I knew her and after we'd met. Different worlds. I've never felt so vividly, vibrantly, presently alive as I did when I was with her. My senses burned so much brighter. The air smelt so much more deliciously fetid. Eric, I've imbibed opium with Thomas de Quincey, dropped acid with the Rolling Stones, been a fleeting visitor in the whirlpooling tumultuous minds of Edvard Munch, Vincent van Gogh, and yet I'd never seen colours the way I did when I was with her.
Not a name drop in there, but yeah.
All the killing we did wasn't important. We were just swatting flies. That wasn't what I was enjoying. What I was enjoying was her company. And that's when I realized I would have given it all up for her. Hell, being the devil, none of it mattered. Just me and her. It was quite the epiphany. I almost felt like a new man, like I was healing. And when we made love, well, we danced across the sky as comets. As I've said before, I have no gender, no sex, I have no earthly form. I was an angel, so I'm just a supernatural entity, a life essence. And like Joni Mitchell said, love is touching souls. And surely she touched mine. We were two spirits, two souls, and we became entwined somehow, like smoke plumes merging, helixing into one another without boundary. Oh, you human beings might think it's a bit spicy to stick a thumb up your bum mid-coitus, but that's nothing compared to making love as shapeshifters. We were wolves, dogs, bears, kittens, unicorns, lions, whales. I have been a centipede with a foot fetish, a furry enjoying the company of a real-life husky dog woman. I've been asphyxiated by a suckered octopoid tentacle. There are no heights of carnal bliss we did not ascend together. We exhausted our physical forms and transcended to another plane. And that's when I made my decision. I was ready to hang up my crown and leave hell behind. I stormed down into Hades and wrote a letter of resignation there and then with instructions for how the place should be run from now on. I placed it on my desk, gathered a few keepsakes in my bag, and without saying a word to anybody, I left those furnaces behind for good. At least that's what I intended. When I manifested back in her cottage, I found she was gone. No sign of her. I couldn't make sense of it. I scoured the earth looking for her, in a storm of desperation, thundering over the Mediterranean, down across Africa, out to Australia, the Far East, the Americas. I even ploughed through the snows at the poles for any hint of a clue. I checked every pockmark on the moon. Eventually, I put my pride aside and resorted to sending a message up to heaven to ask for an explanation. I didn't get an immediate reply. I got a psychic out of office from Gabriel because apparently he doesn't work bank holidays. I waited and waited until an answer came back. They said that in the brief interval when I'd been down in hell, Lilith had been visited by angels. Apparently, they told her that the prayers of her former order of nuns had reached such an intensity and amplification that her soul was now eligible for a complete redemption. All she'd have to do is confess and repent, and what do you know? The angels say she did exactly that. And by an astonishing coincidence, a millisecond later, she suffered a freak pulmonary embolism and dropped down dead. So holy was the scene of her death, they said, that her very bones ascended to heaven. I turn my back for the blink of an eye, and they steal away the only woman I have ever loved. I never saw her again, and I will never forgive them. That's my story.
Yeah, love sucks, man. I know the end was not the best for you, but you know, what about that saying? It's better to have loved and lost rather than never have loved at all.
It's true.
Exactly, and I guess, you know, I want the same thing.
Look, I don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah,
I've done my part of the bargain, Eric. Now it's time for you to do your part of the bargain. So,
the thing is,
how are you going to do it? Tell me, how are you going to kill Joe?
Shall
we start by putting some plastic sheets down? You don't want to get the carpet red.
Do you want me to, can I just be honest?
Yeah, how are you going to do it? Be honest with me.
Yeah.
Have you ever jointed a chicken? It's similar to that.
I'm not going to kill Joe.
What?
I'm not going to kill Joe.
But you promised.
I know, but so?
We had a deal.
Yeah, but who cares?
I open up and tell you my sad story, and you kill Joe. That was the deal. We had a deal.
Yeah, but so?
Well, you know how deals work. You say you're going to do a thing, and then do a thing. I'm the devil, and even I understand that. You have to.
So what? Who cares that you're meant to fulfill a deal if you...
No. You were going to kill him, Eric. I trusted you. I believed you. You said you were going to do it. You promised.
I know, but this is exactly the kind of shit you would pull. And be honest, mate, a bit of hard, tough love for you now. End this on a bit of tough love. You pull shit like I'm pulling right now, on the daily. This is why people leave you, man.
I thought we were friends.
We are friends, but sometimes part of friendship and part of love is being honest and saying, you've got to change your ways because I care about you.
I poured my heart out to you.
Because I knew there's no way you'd open up if I didn't make some bullshit deal. And making a bullshit deal is something that you should recognise. Because since when have you ever been trustworthy? And maybe what I wanted to get to in these conversations was that there is some value in being a good person and opening yourself up to love, and didn't that feel good to finally share your story with someone? I know it's difficult, and I know...
Well, I had the last laugh, Eric, because it wasn't true. I made it all up. There was no Lilith. She's not real. I've never been in love. You're so stupid. Look, you're so silly. You thought I was telling the truth, and I wasn't. I was just telling lies so that you'd kill Joe. So you're the fool. So ha!
You're never gonna learn, are you?
You've been listening to Tea with the Devil, a podcast with Eric Rushton as a lying, deceitful bastard and Richard Dadd as the overlord of the underworld. The music is Nocturnal Shadows by Anna Maria Olsen. If you value your life, you will rate this podcast favorably and share it via social media amongst your friends.